Good evening, councillors, senior staff members and members of the press and the press gallery. Mr Vivian, very warm welcome to our March council meeting. My apologies, my April council meeting, I'm a month behind. Very warm welcome to it, and we look forward to enjoying a good meeting together. I'd just like to point out to you councillors that Mr Steve Stock is with us, and he is here in support of Felicity Baxter, who's an absentee for tonight. She's not with us, so welcome to your first council meeting, Steve, and hopefully you enjoy it. And we certainly, I think, who else? No one else is missing from our senior staff. Councillor McMullen is an apology. He's not with us tonight either. Welcome to those people that have just come in, to Emily and Miss Johnson, who has just come into the gallery. And so councillors, we will start into our processes, and the first thing I must do is do an acknowledgement to country. The Shire of Esperance acknowledges the Kepikal Wadjuri people of the Noongar Nation and the Ngadju people, who are the traditional custodians of this land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians today. So the official opening, and thank you, we do have a list. We have firstly the attendances, and we have 8 councillors present, and Councillor McMullen is an apology for this evening. We then go to, as I indicated, Mrs Baxter is an apology also from the senior management team. We go to the apologies and notification of granted leave of absence. Is there any? I'll announce the apologies. No granted leave of absence. Application for leave of absence. Any councillors wishing to seek? First up, Councillor Oborne.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd like to apply for leave from Monday the 8th to Sunday the 14th of May.
Thank you. Is there any further? Councillor Chambers.
I'd like to apply for a leave of absence from the 4th to the 12th of May.
Thank you. Any further leave of absence? The councillors, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of supporting those 2 leave of absence, please show. Against, that is carried 8 votes to 0. Mover. I didn't have a mover and a seconder. Somebody move, please. Moved by Councillor O'Donnell, seconded by Councillor De Haas. I'll put it to the vote now. Against, that is carried. Thank you. How are we going? Right, okay, thank you. So then we move on, councillors, to the application announcement by person presiding without discussion. Councillors, I'd just like to report that the 2 Anzac Day services were extremely well attended. The thing that shone through was the great work that our Shire staff did for those 2 events. They put in a lot of effort. You saw the obvious, the traffic management, but all the work and preparation, and it was acknowledged by the people from RSL, asked me to pass on their sincere thanks to the Shire people. So I'll pass that on to you, Mr CEO, if you can share it with your staff. Thank you very much. So we go over the page from announcements to declarations of members' interests. Are there any members declaring financial interests? Items on this agenda? No financial interest. Then we go to declarations of proximity interest. Any councillors declaring proximity interest? No proximity interest? And I'll move to declarations of impartiality interest. And on this one, councillors, I declare on item 12.1.5 the waiver of fees for the Esperance District Agricultural Society. Any further declarations? Councillor Oborne.
Thank you, Mr. President. I declare the same interest in 12.1.5 as I'm also a member of the Esperance Agricultural and District Society.
Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I declare an impartiality on item 12.1.2 development application oversized building for lot 810 Parkland Retreat Chadwick, as the applicant is a personal friend of mine.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, declare a impartiality for 12.1.15. Fee waiver as I'm a member of the Ag Society.
Any further declarations of impartiality? Councillor De Haas.
Yes, I'd like to declare an impartiality interest in 12.1.1 development application oversized building, outbuilding and associated works, lot 90 Gunton Circle, as the applicant is a personal friend of mine.
Thank you. Any further declarations, councillors? If not, that concludes the declaration of members' interests. We move to item 7 on the agenda, which is the public question time. And I do have here, we have Miss Gemma Johnson on item 7, yes, that's the public question time, and you wish to ask questions, Miss Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Nicol. Hello, everyone. Afternoon. Gemma Johnson, 297 Twilight Beach Road. I think I have to say that, don't I? Question 1. Was the sole reason that my compliance matter, assessment number 77651, was held behind closed doors at the Ordinary Council meeting on the 28th of September 2021, with absolutely no transparency to the public whatsoever, to protect the identity of the one single complainant, being my neighbour Shelley Payne, please?
My apology, could you the key point of that one again, please?
Was the key point?
Yes.
Was the sole reason for my matter being held behind closed doors to protect the identity of one single person, being the complainant?
Okay. Well, I'll pass that to Mr. Burge, because he makes decisions on those issues.
No, that wouldn't be the case. Normally the case on that is to protect the compliance matter that we're going ahead with, because that's it's more important for the person who we're doing compliance matters with. So it would be normal for us to do confidential matters on compliance matters. It's not to protect the complainant, it's more about the person who we're taking compliance matters against.
So all compliance matters are?
Yeah, in the most
behind
part it
closed
would
doors?
be, yeah.
Even a flagpole?
Is that, do you have other questions?
Yep, there's others. Not many, it's all good. Question 2. My next question relates to the council meeting 22nd of March 2022, item 12.1.7, adoption of the compliance and enforcement policy. I'd just like to clarify what point 4 in the recommendation and decision specifically means, please. It states, I'll just quote what it states, reassess all current compliance and enforcement action in accordance with the adopted policy and address matters accordingly. This goes on a little bit, sorry, but from memory, Councillor Chambers was strongly opposed to the inclusion of point 4. I did watch the CCTV. So I'm wondering if perhaps he might like to clarify what its inclusion means, please, as I gather he must understand it well, as he was so opposed to its inclusion at that time. I've got a little bit more to run on, but if you want to answer it now, you can.
So it's a separate question you have.
Well, it's my reasoning for wanting to know. So the purpose for me asking the above is that I understand the inclusion of point 4 to encapsulate my flagpole compliance issue under this newly adopted compliance and enforcement policy, which essentially would then have to draw a line in the sand, so as to speak, for how the Shire would enforce the same compliance action to other similar minor moderate breaches, such as my flagpole. If I am forced to relocate my flagpole to the Shire approved position, I am asking if Council can ensure that the Shire will be consistent in its enforcement of similar minor compliance breaches, as if not, I feel it would be very wrong if the Shire Council had one rule for one and another rule for another.
Okay, thank you. The final part of that question was a statement, so we won't refer to that, but I can assure you that there's lots of compliance issues that we will need to deal with, some minor, some major. We are endeavouring to develop policies to make sure we can work through those. And at that meeting that you referred to, the issue was would not have been about your issue specific. It would have been about the whole of the compliance policies and all of the issues we've got. Our staff brought forward to us many compliance issues that we need to manage. We are endeavouring to manage those, the entire number, and it wasn't specific to anyone as such as you're suggesting it was.
No, I'm not suggesting that. It was merely an added thing that was argued here. But I would like to know that other similar, if I have to move my flagpole, that other similar compliance issues will be handled in the like manner as mine, and they will be issued a directions notice
Okay,
for
thank
such a
you.
minor breach.
That's a statement, and it's not a question, but I could answer it on
No,
the basis.
it was a question because I actually asked, could Council ensure that the Shire, is that not a question?
Well,
Question statement.
well, I don't know when your question come in. You made statements in there, so my question is perhaps is the best way to present it. So I'll give you the opportunity to ask another question.
So you're not really going to answer that
But
one?
I answered on the basis that that will happen that way.
It will.
Yes.
So consistency is important, clearly. So that's my point.
It is. I agree with you.
And just to finish that off, I'd like to add point 5 of the objectives of the Shire complaint handling policy states increases the level of satisfaction among customers through the delivery of effective and consistent services. Okay, my last question is, I refer to the email I sent you all last night relating to the reasons for the decision of the tribunal document. As stated, both the Shire and myself have not received the reasons for the decision document as yet from the State Administrative Tribunal. I've got a note down the bottom because I literally did receive it about half an hour before getting here, which I have here. I don't know if the Shire has theirs yet. This document will be containing new and I believe very relevant information stating both experts agreed and the Tribunal accepts that the relocation of the flagpole to the Shire approved position will have a greater impact on the visual amenity of 309, which for the record that is Shelley Payne's supposed address. I'd like to ask Council, once both the Shire and myself receive the reasons for the decision of the Tribunal document, does Council believe the Shire should formally present this new information to Council, as Holly Phillips informed me would happen in her email last year? Personally, I believe this new information to be worthy of Council's consideration, as the only reason this compliance reinforcement action ever began was very ironically because my one complaining neighbour, Shelley Payne, complained exactly about this, being the supposed impact my flagpole had on her visual amenity. And yet after completing the SAT process, it has been determined by SAT that the relocation of my flagpole to the Shire approved position will result in a greater negative impact to my neighbour's visual amenity, and furthermore, sadly, it will then also be in a position that I cannot view it at all. I've got a little note at the bottom to do with receiving it. Note, I'd like to add here that I literally received this reasons of decision from the Tribunal about half an hour ago, and after a quick skim read, the above quoted statement can be found on page 9 at the end of paragraph 2, which I have highlighted here if anybody would like to see it now.
Thank you. There was a number of statements you made in there, and
I
then
tried to condense it, sorry.
and the question was, were we going to
Reconsider, not reconsider, consideration. Holly's email, I think you've all got what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, could I say the issue of the detailed report from the SAT, I certainly have not seen it.
It's right here, would you like me to give it
Well,
to you?
not in the middle of question time, thank you very much. But the issue is that we have not, I believe, at the Shire, and I asked the planner this morning and he hadn't received a copy of it.
Yeah.
But that's we have to see that first. And I think the CEO said that you advised him that there had been a decision made by putting in an email to him, and part of that content says there was a decision made, and he had to then go into the webpage of the State Administrative Tribunal to actually see that there was a decision made. Now, he hasn't reported to me today, and I appreciate he's been tied up in meetings, but he hasn't reported to me today that he's received a copy of the reasons why the decision was made. And Mr. CEO, would you like to make a comment?
It's literally just come through, so I don't know.
Okay, well, when we get it, I can promise you when we get it, we'll read it. And if there's something appropriate in there we need to deal with, if they tell us we need to make decisions in regards to it, we will make decisions in regards to the
They're not
those reasons.
saying you should do anything. It's literally a statement in there. But it's how all of this started, which I realise this is question time, so it's probably not discussion time. But I think for the best interests of our town, if you could honour Holly's email, it would be the best thing for everyone, for the fact that the one complainant, Shelley Payne, is going to get a worse outcome with the relocation. So am I, and so is the whole town.
I don't want to debate this with you here because this is public question time. You've made statements and I can only hear those statements. Thank you very much. And the councillors have heard your statements. Is there any other public question time? There's no one else in the public, but no. Okay, so we move on then to the business for which we have gathered, and we go to item 8 on the agenda, public addresses and deputations. CEO, no public address and deputation. Item 9, petitions. No. Item 10, confirmation of the minutes of our last council meeting on the 28th of March 2023. Is someone prepared to move the confirmation? Moved by Councillor Horan, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Horan?
No, thanks.
Seconder wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Anyone speaking against the motion? No. Therefore, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. 8 votes to 0. We go to delegates' reports without discussion, and we have a list of them on the electronic board. And the first one there is Councillor Oborne.
Nothing further to add, Mr. President.
We move on to Councillor Flanagan. It's a bit blank. Did you have anything to report, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just reading through the other list. No, I'm still a nil report because I reported the DPIRD presentation in my previous delegates.
Thank you. Then, so then we go to Councillor O'Donnell.
No, thank you, Mr. President. It's tabled.
Thank you. And then I'll go to Councillor Graham. Okay, and Councillor De Haas.
As tabled, thank you, Mr. President.
And we go to Councillor Warren.
Yeah, no, nothing to add, thank you.
And we've got Councillor Chambers. Did you have anything you wish to?
My apologies. Yeah, there was 2. There was the GEBROC meeting, both the GEBROC meetings on the 31st, and then there was one by Zoom the following Friday.
Okay, well perhaps you can send that in
I'll sort
to
that
our
later.
secretarial people. We've then my list are up there, councillors, and across the 2 pages. So I just thank all councillors who have represented council, attended and represented council in those various meetings over the course of the last month. We're into the business matters, which is the external. First item is section 12, the matters requiring a determination, and then we get the item 12.1.1, oversized outbuilding shed and associated works, lot 90, 25 Gunton Circle, Castletown. Are there any questions you might have to Mr. Hinley on this item? No, then is somebody prepared to move the motion, which is on page 14 of your agendas? Councillor Oborne.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I move that council approve development application 10.2023.5215.1 for an oversized outbuilding shed and associated works at lot 90, 25 Gunton Circle, Castletown, subject to the following conditions 1 through 8 and the following advice notes 1 through 6.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Oborne and seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Oborne, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. This is my monthly one that I move. Thank you, Mr. Hinley. This is, as always, a legitimate storage needs for the Esperance community. Where they've cited it results in minimised visual impact. Importantly, non-objections were provided from all of the adjoining landowners, and this is entirely consistent with previous decisions.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Does the seconder wish to speak in favour?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I'd like to speak in favour of this matter. I have did a drive-by, and even though it is a very large shed, it is on a very large block. And it's for 3 different items: a boat, caravan, and vintage car. So it's definitely worth it, and it fits in the block quite well.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? I put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 8 votes to 0. We move on then, councillors, to item 12.1.3. My apologies, 12.1.2, development application for another oversized building on lot 810 Parkland Retreat. The items are on page 19 and the recommendation is on page I've got to get my lines to line up here, 22. So, are there any questions you might have onto Mr. Hinley on this item, councillors? Another oversized shed. No questions? Is somebody prepared to move the recommendation, which is on page 22? No one's wanting to move? Moved by Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you. I move the officer's recommendation that council approve development application 10.2023.5211.1 for an oversized outbuilding shed at lot 81010 Parkland Retreat, Chadwick, subject to the following conditions 1 through to 9 and the following advice notes 1 through to 5.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor De Haas. Councillor O'Donnell, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did a drive-by on this one as well. And it's an extremely large block of land. It's a larger than standard shed, however it is on a larger block and there's no objections from the neighbours. So I see no problem with this one, and I urge other councillors to vote in favour of this motion.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor De Haas, do you wish to speak in favour?
I don't think I have anything to add to Councillor O'Donnell's words. She took the words right out of my mouth.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? No speakers against, no amendment. I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That is carried 8 votes to nil. We move on then to item 12.1.3, modification of the local planning policies, ancillary accommodation. Are there any questions on this one to Mr. Hinley? No questions? All right then, someone prepared to move the recommendation, which is on page 28 of your agendas. Councillor Graham, prepared to move, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to move the council's recommendation that council, in accordance with clause 4 of the Dame provision set out in the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 Schedule 2, prepare the local planning policy ancillary accommodation as contained in attachment B.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Flanagan. Councillor Graham, you can speak to your motion.
Yeah, look, I think this is a really positive move. We've just passed a couple of larger sheds, and I think there's been a bit of an issue in the ancillary builds where the restriction of size of ancillaries, and I think especially in the rural residential where we've got plenty of room, I believe this will sort of enable a little bit more development of housing in our town, and also give a bit more flexibility to our planner to approve these slightly larger ancillaries based on the size and position of these properties. So I encourage council to support this planning motion.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Is there a speaker against the motion? The seconder wish to speak in favour. Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing further to add. I don't think I could have articulated the merits of this item any better than Councillor Graham. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is the speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? I'll put to the vote those in favour, please show. That's carried 8-0. Thank you. We go then to item 12.1.4, modification of the local planning policy outbuildings. This is on page 31 of your agendas, and the recommendation is on page 33. Are there any questions you might have to Mr. Hinley on this item? Yes.
President, I just believe on page 32 is that an error in, just a spelling error, and is it oversized or overside on page 32?
On page 32, and what part of it?
In the notes, item
I
5.
think it's contained within the table, right-hand side, number 5. I think it's meant to say oversized building.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for picking that up. So it's oversize. Thank you for picking that up. So, so with that amendment, is someone prepared to move motion? Councillor? No, sorry, you've got a question?
I just noticed, because you've drawn it to my attention, that the word would be an instead of and. An oversized, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I'll accept that. That's good with those two corrections then. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation with those two corrections? Moved by Councillor Chambers.
Move the officer's recommendation that council, in accordance with clauses 4 and 5, part 2 of the deemed provisions set out in the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 Schedule 2, proceed to amend the local planning policy outbuildings as shown in attachment B.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Chambers. Is someone prepared to second the motion? Councillor De Haas has. Councillor Chambers, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. As per the previous item as well, this is another way of streamlining those processes, but still maintaining the oversight that council has, and certainly the council staff have on those applications. But I can certainly see it being of benefit for those people that are now putting in plans, not having to wait for the monthly council meeting for it to come to be approved, if it's in that case where it can go through quicker. So thanks for continuing to streamline the processes.
Thank you. A speaker against the motion? Is the seconder wish to speak in favour?
Nothing to add to that, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor De Haas. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? Nil. Put to the vote. Against? That is carried. 8 votes to nil. Councillors, we move on then into corporate and community services. And we have, my apologies, external services got 12.1.5. Request for a waiver of fees, Esperance and District Agricultural Society. The item's on page 46 and the recommendations is on page 47. Is there any questions you might have on this item to, I'm not sure whether it goes to Mr. Stocks or whether it goes to the CEO. Mr. Grieve, is it? Yeah, Mr. Grieve's item. Sorry, my apologies. So, councillors, are there any questions you have concerning this item? No questions? I ask then, is someone prepared to move the motion? Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that council waive fees for the Esperance Sporting Complex, Greater Sports Ground and waste disposal for the 2023 Esperance and Districts Agricultural Society Show in exchange for diamond sponsorship.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Flanagan. Is someone prepared to second? Councillor Oram has put up his hand to second. So, Councillor Flanagan, you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Esperance and Districts Agricultural Society Show is obviously one of the marquee events for our community and for our district. I think that the Ag Society do an absolutely brilliant job to put it together year after year after year, and I think that a diamond sponsorship to the value of $7,000 plus GST is not an unreasonable request. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Horan.
I don't think I can add anything more to Councillor Flanagan's. It's perfect what they do. They've done it for years and they do a great job.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? There's no speaker against, no amendment. Councillors, I advise you that this motion requires an absolute majority because it is waiving of fees. I put the motion to vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 8 votes to nil. So now we move on into corporate and community services, and we go to item 12.3.1, rate exemption application. The item is on page 50 of your agendas. Recommendations on page 52. Mrs. Baxter isn't here, so are there any questions you might have to Mr. Stocks or any of the senior management team? Any questions? If not, is someone prepared to move the recommendation in regards to this item? It commences on page 52 and continues on into 53. Councillor Chambers.
Move the officer's recommendation that that council grant exemptions under section 6.262G of the Local Government Act 1995 WA to Esperance Aboriginal Corporation Incorporated for the following properties from the 1st of July 2022. They being Daly Up Drive, Burton Road, Freeman Street, Treasure Road, Chestnut Street and Windich Street. And 2, deny the rates exemption for the following properties under section 6.26, 2G of the Local Government Act 1995 WA for Blake Street, Clark Court and Goldfields Road.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Chambers. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor O'Donnell, thank you. Councillor Chambers, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Chair. As discussed last week during the agenda briefing and the information that we got from the council, those 6 of those properties certainly fall within the agreed and provisions that are allowed as far as rates exemption go, whereas the other ones don't fall within the parameters that are required for rates exemption. So it's to me this is merely a procedural motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to the motion? I've got that one, that's right. So is there a speaker against? There's no speakers against. The speaker in favour, the seconder, Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to publicly thank the staff for sending around the additional information to help us make a more informed decision on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? I believe you're ready to vote on them, councillors. I put to the vote those in favour. Against, that's carried 8-0. Let's move on then to item 12.3.1, which is, my apologies, 12.3.2, the Financial Services Report, which is on page 57, that's right, and the recommendation is on page 57 as well. If there are any questions you might have to our staff, to Mr. Stock, or particularly to the CEO. No questions? Take it then that someone's prepared to move the recommendation. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Council receive the attached report entitled Monthly Financial Services Report, incorporating the Statement of Financial Activity for the month of March 2023.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor De Haas. Thank you. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to thank the staff for putting this report together each month and for answering any questions that we have in our briefing meetings. So thank you very much for that. I encourage everybody to vote for this motion.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? The seconder wishes to speak in favour?
Yes, I'd just like to say once again thank you to the staff for this. I won't say it's a pleasure to read it. There's lots of numbers in there, but it's just such an informative section of this, of the agenda, that you have to say thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or an amendment? No further speakers. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That's carried 8 votes to 0. Certainly it's a complex document. Let's move on then to the item 12.3.3, Delegated Authority Amendment. And are there any questions on this in regards to the officer should be to answer this? It goes on to page 107, isn't it? So, is it? Mr. Greaves again, is it? Are there any questions to Mr. Greaves in regards to this matter? Any questions? You got them all answered last week at the briefing session? That's good. Someone prepared to move the recommendation then, which is on page 108. Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that Council Number 1 endorse the 5.3 Bushfires Act 1954 for offences and infringements delegation, inclusive of amendments, inclusions and deletions, and 2, rescind the 13.1 Caravan Parks and Camping Grounds Act 1995 for managing infringement notices.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Flanagan. Is someone prepared to second the motion? Councillor Horan, thank you. Seconded, moved and seconded. Councillor Flanagan, you can speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is simply a tidy up of delegations. As set out in the report, the Bushfires Act 1954 does not provide for some delegation, and therefore the CEO is unable to appoint officers for this purpose, and this authority must come directly from Council. And it was identified that officers managing infringements under the Caravan Parks and Camping Act 1995 must be appointed under the Local Government Act, and therefore it's recommended that delegation be rescinded. So it's very straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you. It's moved and spoken for by Councillor Flanagan. Is there a speaker against? No. Councillor Horan, do you wish to speak to support the motion?
Yeah, I just think it's a good tidy up, as Councillor Flanagan said, about time. Thank you.
Thank you. And so is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or amendment? Nil. Councillors, I advise you that this requires an absolute majority voting as well. But the motion is a delegation, of course, and that requires an absolute majority for delegations. I put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against? Yeah, that's carried. 8 votes to nil. So then we go on to the next large document, which is the information bulletin, item 12.4.1 on page 111 of your agendas. Do you have any questions on this item? So Mrs. Baxter isn't here, and Miss Sophie Hawke isn't here. And so I think we'd have to make sure we push them towards the Director of Asset Management, I reckon. He has a lot of say in this one. Is there any questions that you have, councillors, that you would like answered before you consider this item? No questions. Someone prepared to move the recommendation, please, as on page 111. Councillor Oborne.
I move the officer's recommendation that council accepts 1, information bulletin April 2023, 2, council priority summary, corporate performance March 2022, 3, delegations discharge, corporate resources, 4, status report, open council resolutions April 2023, 5, community grants program 2022 to 23, small grants March 2022, and 6, letter Esperance Energy Transition Program Honourable Bill Johnson MLA 15th of March 2023.
Thank you.
May
Yes.
I ask a question?
Yes,
please? Dates right?
The letter, was that the letter, the one that you
Oh no, there we go. All good now.
Yeah.
On this, as on the screen, it's been amended. Thank you.
As on the screen, is it? There was an amendment. Well picked up. Thank you. And so it's been moved. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor De Haas. Councillor Oborne, you're welcome to speak to your motion.
Thank you. This is the interesting one, Councillor De Haas, that we all enjoy with the project summaries and updates and things. And again, I just wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank the CEO for his proactiveness on the council plan with regards to Reid House, and I greatly appreciate that. And yeah, so I commend this to my colleagues.
Is there a speaker against the motion? Seconder, would like to speak to it? Councillor De Haas.
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. President. As Councillor Oborne kindly pointed out, this is the interesting one to read. I always enjoy going through this, finding out what's happening, where we're at with the council plan, etc. So, always a good read. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Speaker against or on amendment? Put to the vote those in favour. Against, that is carried 8-0. Okay, so then we move on then to, this is an interesting one. 13.1, the minutes of disbanded committees. I think for people in the gallery it's probably worthwhile pointing out what this one's about. It's committees that have been operating in the council some time back, but we have found that the decisions made in those committees had not been approved, I think is the appropriate word, and so you are actually approving them tonight, and they'll get signed off as being completed if this motion is carried tonight. So hopefully all councillors and members of the public understand that one. Okay, so then we go, I'll ask if there's someone prepared to move the motion to make this all happen. Councillor Oborne.
I move the officer's recommendation that council confirm the following most recent minutes of a committee which has been disbanded. 1. New Landfill Community Reference Group minutes, 2nd of October 2017. 2. Youth Advisory Council minutes, 26th of March 2018. 3. Scadden Restoration Reference Group minutes, 27th of June 2018.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor O'Donnell. Is someone prepared to second the motion? Oh, Oborne, my apologies. It's seconded by Councillor Graham. Councillor Oborne, do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, just simply to agree with you that this is a housekeeping item. It's something that our diligent staff have noticed in trying to cross all the T's and, dot all the I's. It's our choice. We don't have to confirm these minutes, but having read through them, as I'm sure you all did, it's nice to ratify these for historical purposes.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor Graham, you wish to support your motion that you seconded?
Yeah, no. It's certainly quite funny to read this motion because number one, the new landfill is a very old landfill issue now, and the Youth Advisory Council are probably retired now. They seem to be a long time.
Thank you. A speaker against the motion? Speaker in favour? Speaker against your amendment? Nil. Therefore, I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that it is carried. We go to item 14 on the agenda, motions of which notice have been given. Any motions come into you, Mr. CEO? Okay, thank you. We go to members' questions with or without notice. Any member has a question on any matter? Councillor Oborne.
It's for asset management,
Yeah.
because you can't get through the whole meeting with no questions, Mr. Walker. Corner of Ocean Street and Blake Street, the water main broke a while ago, and it's mostly fixed, but it looks like, with my technical expertise, that it needs to be resheeted. You know how it's about an inch lower. I drove over it after reading these minutes that the asphalt guys have been and gone, and I just wondered, is that still something that has to be done, or is that it? Is that how it's going to stay?
Through the chair, asphalt's in town currently, and it's programmed in as part of those works. So yes, it's been just left a bit lower, so we can come in and asphalt afterwards. But yes, and Watercorp is paying for the works.
Thank you for the answer. Members' questions with or without notice. Is anybody else game enough to ask a question without notice? No, but that shows you how promptly we can get information back, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Walker. If there's no other questions, we move on then to urgent business approved by decision. There's no items of urgent business that you bring forward, Mr. CEO. Thank you. Then we go to matters behind closed doors, and we haven't got any, have we? Yeah, that's right, we had a confidential attachment only. Okay, so then we go to public question time for the opportunity for any members of the public who might like to ask a question. The media are entitled to ask questions at any time. Thank you. So I think we are now at the closure of the meeting. I'd like to extend an apology to those people that are watching this meeting in live streaming. I forgot to welcome you in at the beginning of the meeting, so my sincere apologies for that. And could I thank you for being online and watching our meeting. Could I extend my sincere thanks to my fellow councillors for the way that you've dealt with the business tonight. And as we always say, there's many hours of work have gone into this agenda as we prepare through the various briefing sessions and the agenda briefing that we have. And so it pays off on a day like this when we're able to deal with the business quite quickly. And with that, I declare the meeting closed.